Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Zach's Credit Card Guide. Today we're going to be talking about trip delay coverage that comes on some premium credit cards. If you are new to the channel, we do a lot of credit topics, a lot of card reviews, so if that interests you, make sure to hit that subscribe button, but let's get started. So before we get into some of the specifics, I'm going to start this video and I'm going to say it a couple times, and that the things we're going to be talking about here are very generalized. This coverage can be different from issuer to issuer and in circumstance to circumstance. And again, I'm probably going to say it more than once. Please check with your issuer before relying on any of this. This is kind of a high-level view to familiarize you with this benefit. So what is trip delay coverage? Well, in certain circumstances, your credit card may provide some additional benefits if you are delayed or stranded while you're traveling. Now, this only triggers in certain events, and again, it's very important to understand how this coverage works should you be in that situation. Now, here's a quick chart of some of the more popular cards that do offer this benefit. Quite a few Chase cards have it, a couple Citi cards, and then the Barclay Arrival Plus as well. Now, one thing you'll notice here is that there are no American Express cards, simply because there aren't any that offer this valuable benefit. So that is something to keep in mind, especially if you are focused on American Express. You just simply don't get this coverage, and you may want to consider opening one of these other cards simply for it once you understand how it works. Now, each card has different circumstances in which it will trigger this coverage, and one of the first things is how long the delay needs to be before this comes into play. So for some of the more premium cards, it's only a 6-hour delay, while some require a minimum of 12 hours. Now, most usually the maximum benefit is $500 per ticket, while the Barclay card is only $300. Now, how do you get this coverage? Well, in some cases, you only need to pay for a portion of the ticket. Some require the entire fare, and in some circumstances, you can even get this coverage on award tickets, because typically you still have to pay some taxes and things like that. So a lot of times, even if you pay those taxes, and that's all you have to pay, with one of your cards, then that should still be covered. So again, check with your issuer. Usually you get that book of benefits when you first get the card, so check in there to see the details as to how much of the fare you need to charge, but that's generally how you get the coverage in the first place. So what sort of trips are covered? Well, for most people, you are going to run into this either on a flight delay or maybe a cruise ship. What it does not cover is commuter rail, bus lines, things of that nature. So again, for most people, you're going to run into this on the air or perhaps on a cruise. So what kind of events? Well, either equipment failure, so maybe your plane is delayed for a few hours while they have to get a part from somewhere. Extreme weather, lost travel documents, so maybe you're traveling abroad, you need to go to the consulate or something to get your travel documents, and now your trip is delayed so long, you may be able to get some coverage for those extra expenses that you wouldn't have otherwise incurred. Labor strike. So in some countries, strikes related to transportation are fairly common. Spain's one of them. So if that should affect your travel plans, you may be able to get some things covered. Unable to board because of overbooking. A lot of people may run into this, as is one of the more common on the list, I think, maybe right after weather. And of course, a hijacking. Now, I think that is going to be pretty rare. Not a lot of people are going to run into that. So what and who is covered? Now, this is going to be one of those things that you need to check your benefits on, because this will be one of the major differences, the who. Now, usually, of course, it's yourself, and almost always it's a spouse or partner, and then sometimes it'll say immediate family. You want to check the definitions page of that book to see what they mean by immediate family. Now, some will even go so far as to say just anyone on your reservation. So again, it's very important to check your benefits guide. Now, as far as what's covered, that's fairly uniform. Now, if the delay is long enough, lodging is usually fine, as well as meals, and then reasonable expenses. Now, we're going to circle back to this in a minute here, but the key is reasonable. So you don't get to just run out and buy a bunch of stuff. That's not the point of this coverage. The point is to cover the things that you otherwise would have had to pay for because of this delay. So again, lodging, meals, maybe other little ancillary items like chargers if you absolutely need one, things of that nature. Now, what happens afterwards? Well, you usually need to file the claim within 60 days of the event. Now, the benefits administrator is almost always a completely third party that handles this. They're basically an insurance company is how to think of it. And they're almost never run by the issuing bank. They're partnered with this insurance company to provide this benefit. And I actually wouldn't be surprised if all of the issuers use the same one. Now, it is best to have all of your documentation ready to go when you file the claim. And at the end of the video, we're going to do a little story time because I had to file one of these claims myself. So if you want to see how that turned out and what I had to go through to get that paid out, stick around to the end of the video. Now, this is the very important part that I hinted at earlier. The phrase you need to keep in mind is mitigate your damages. And basically what that means is you just need to be reasonable. So yes, the maximum benefit may be $500 per person. That doesn't mean you get to go to the Four Seasons and run up $1,000 in room service for you and your partner. I think the best advice I could offer here is if you're in this kind of situation, even if it's a pretty slam dunk issue, let's say a heavy blizzard came through and you can't take off until 18 hours later and now you have to go get a hotel room. So that seems like a pretty slam dunk case and you should be able to get that reimbursed. I still would caution you to basically just go ahead and pay for whatever you're comfortable with otherwise paying for should the claim be denied for some weird reason. You don't want to be stuck holding the bill for $800 or $900 when you probably could have gotten away with maybe $200. So again, even if you think the claim's probably going to be paid, just the most responsible thing to do is just keep the cost to a minimum so that you don't run into any issues. And again, should the absolute worst case happen where you're stuck holding the bill for, again, whatever reason that you can. So again, please keep that in mind should you be in this situation. Now, the kinds of documents that you'll typically need are some sort of proof of the original ticket. They want to see which card it was purchased with to make sure that you have that coverage available. So they generally want to see some sort of receipt or invoice for the original tickets and then receipts for any expenses that you had. So the best advice is to keep receipts for absolutely everything should you be in this situation. Try to even just charge it onto one card if you can. That's not necessarily something you have to do. It's just going to make your life a lot easier. So if you're in this situation, for that brief period, just pick one card and just put everything related to your claim on that card. Because sometimes they might ask for the entire billing statement or other receipts, or it'll just make your life a lot easier. And I would recommend starting the claim as soon as you get home so that you have all of the expenses ready to go and you're just ready to file everything all at once. So now I'll briefly tell you what happened to me on a recent trip. So we took a cruise at the end of January and we were late getting back into port due to really heavy fog. We were supposed to get back around 7 or 8 a.m. and we had a plane booked for 10 a.m. just a couple hours because we figured in a perfect world we'd just get off the ship, get to the plane and get home. Well, again, the fog kept us out in the bay for about 12 hours. We had well missed the flight, but luckily I had booked everything on our Sapphire Reserve. So I knew everything was going to be okay, but I still had to deal with this stuff. So I had to call the airline, get rebooked for a later flight. They could only get us out about 48 hours later. So the shortened version is we were able to get 2 hotel nights because again, they couldn't get us out till 48 hours later. And we got our meals in the meantime. And we even got some incidentals. So I had to go to a local CVS and pick up a couple things that we needed. And those were all covered. Now, the benefits administrator, in my instance, left something to be desired. They requested information more than once that I had submitted, and I even have experience in insurance, so I made everything really easy for them. And again, this is a pro tip for you if you should be in this situation. Just type up a Word document, save it as a PDF, just explaining everything. Make it real easy for them, or so I thought, on the other end, so that they can just read it and connect the dots so you don't have to go back and forth. Now with me, they still went back and forth and requested a bunch of stuff multiple times. It took about 60 days to get my claim paid out when I really made it easy for them up front. So what I'm telling you is just have everything in a row, have all your statements saved as PDFs, all of your receipts scanned, and you shouldn't have any issues. Now in my case, we even got a couple extra days of dog sitting because again, even though that's not listed specifically in what they cover, they do say reasonable expenses. So in my case, it was a pretty easy case to say, look, we have someone watching our dog and we were using a paid service. So this is an extra 2 days that we weren't otherwise going to have to pay for, and that was not an issue. So this is a very valuable benefit. All said and done, we got about $600 back. because we were able to get the plane change fee. Now that is covered under trip cancellation insurance. That's a video for a different day, but we were able to get the ticket change fee as well as our lodging and meals and the other expenses that we had. So all said, I think it was about $600 that we got back just by using a credit card that we use anyway. So this is a very valuable benefit to have, and as long as you understand what it covers and when, I think it could potentially save you a lot of headache in the future. So my question for you guys is, have you ever run into this? Tell us your story down below in the comments. But if you came across this video and you're in this situation and you have a specific question, leave it down below. I'll try to get back to you with what I think's going on. But otherwise, if you guys have any other comments or questions, leave them down below. I try to get to every single one. Find me on social media so you can stay in touch, but most importantly, guys, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos. That's all I've got for you this time, guys. We'll see you at the next one.